Everyone, it's Dollulus. Today I have a very special video for you. This is my Peri and Pearl custom. So they have legs. Peri and Pearl are originally some sea creatures and had kind of like a mermaid tail. But what I did is I cut their body in half and I added Ghoulia's legs on there. So I did this custom about 6 years ago, so it's been a little while. Unfortunately, I did not film it then, but I did take a couple pictures. So I'm gonna show those pictures, walk you through the process, and kind of explain what I did to get them this way. As far as I know, I am the only one who has done this, but if you know someone who has, please give me a comment and let me know. If you want to try it out yourself, I'm more than happy to answer any questions because I would love to see more of my little two-headed monster out there. You know, you could also pop some Ghoulia heads and have a two-headed Ghoulia if you wanted. So it's really fun custom. If you want to check out a better detail of the photos, I'll link my Tumblr below. I'm also going to put some links to the materials that I used, so you can click those and buy them yourself if you wanted to. At the end of the video, I'll do some fashion swaps and stuff, but I'll just give you a good look at them here with these clothes on. As you can see, they just look like a very normal Monster High doll. Their hair is not very nice, I'll say that. So yeah, but here is a close-up view of what it looks like today. So as you can see, that epoxy has yellowed a lot. It's been 6 years, so yeah, it yellowed. And then on the back here, you can see the little yellow line there. But honestly, you don't really see that when she has her clothes on at all, so it doesn't bother me. If I were to do this again, I'd probably make the line right below her chest, because occasionally if they're wearing a midriff top, you notice this, but that's really about it. Okay, here's the first picture. So here's everything, all the body parts. So you can see I took the heads off of them, and I also took the head off of Ghoulia because when we're working with them, we don't want heads on. I also took the arms off. So unfortunately, Ghoulia is a G1, so her arm pegs did not fit in Peri and Pearl's arm peg holes. So I did use Peri and Pearl's arms. I sanded off the scales and just cut off that fin part with an X-Acto knife, but they do have Ghoulia's hands. It's really easy to remove heads. I mean, I'm sure you've heard about it, but you just run the head and the neck area under hot water for a little bit, and then it gets nice and squishy, and you can pull the head off easily. Okay, here's a picture mid-surgery. So what I used is just a Dremel tool to cut the bottom part off of the top part. And then I did cut like a little extra so that I could just make sure I didn't have like a short torso. And I did end up sanding those down, the edges a little bit with my Dremel, just to make it kind of as smooth as I could and as even as I could. So to combine the two halves together, I used a 2-part epoxy called Magic Sculpt. I'll try and link it for you. So basically there's just 2 different blobs and you mix them together, has a consistency like clay, and then once they're mixed together, they eventually have a chemical reaction and they just harden. So there's no baking like polymer clay or something. It just does it all by itself. It cures on its own. Okay, so to show you how I connected the bodies, I'm gonna give you an example with these 2 pop caps and some old air dry clay. Anyway, so pretend this is like the bottom torso and this is the top part of the torso. So hollow inside and it's got these edges. First, I tried to put a snake of that Magic Sculpt around here and just connect them, but the body cracked in half when I was sanding it. So I came up with another method. You want to get a big blob of your epoxy clay and stick it in there. So we want to really get it deep in the torso, and we want it to be like overlapping the edges. So, and then we're just gonna smash them together like that. You want to have a lot of extra coming out. You can just pluck off some of the extra, and then what you can do to smooth it out is take your fingertip in some water if you're using the Magic Sculpt I suggested, and then you can just go over and smooth it down, because the Magic Sculpt before it's cured can smooth with water. So that's how I smoothed it over on the torso. You can see I left like a pretty big kind of like belt of Magic Sculpt around the body because I was super scared she was going to crack in half again. But this is a better method to make it really stable because the clay is going inside of the torso to give it a lot of stability. So as far as doing the sanding, when I first sanded them, I used this stuff by 3M called Ultra Flexible Sanding Sheet. So it is like a plastic backed sanding paper, and it's good for wet sanding. It's not like regular paper sandpaper, if that makes sense. So this is what I used at first. First I used the 100 grit, and then I graduated to the 320 grit for a smoother look. The way I do it is I cut it in little squares. So obviously she's already finished, but I'll just give you a little sample of how it goes here. So you want to keep the body in water. Obviously she wouldn't have her heads on when I was doing this, so I could actually get the body in the container. But anyway, and then you just take the piece of sandpaper, you want it really wet, and I would just wrap it around my finger and just very gently go like this. So just very gently go like that and sand all that extra stuff off. And then like sanding the arms, you know, just kind of like wrapping it around, going like that. Now this film sandpaper, it only goes up to 320. So for the finer grits, I used regular paper sandpaper. This is typically used for, I think, automotives. It's very fine. So the 500 grit, the 1000 grit, and the 1200 grit. Of course, you start off with the 500 and you slowly work your way up to the 1200, just so you can get a really smooth finish. This is a little square I just cut to show you how I do it. And then it's a very similar process. She's in the water, submerged, and you just want everything to stay wet the whole time. This keeps the dust down. And so I would just wrap it around my finger and very gently sand, sand, sand all over, basically. So I definitely gave myself a case of tendonitis doing this, and it took me a long time. A lot of watching or half watching TV shows. This does wear out a lot faster than the film. It'll break down because it's in the water. So you're going to use more of this than the film, since the film is more water resistant. The film you can sort of rinse off. You can rinse this off too because it's going to build a lot of dust. Like, I'll just show you. It builds like almost like a white dust. But anyway, so that's kind of a rough idea of how I did it. The kind of funny thing about it is this sandpaper is actually the exact sandpaper I used to do this. It's just been sitting in my drawer for 6 years waiting for another project. When you're a crafter, you're a hoarder. And the other thing I used on their body to make it pretty smooth is something called Novus Plastic Scratch Remover. So there's a heavy scratch remover, there's a fine scratch remover, and then just a cleaning agent. It's like a 3-step process. I had this on hand already. It's completely optional. You do not need to use it, but since I already had it and its purpose is getting rid of fine scratches in plastic, I thought, hey, I might as well use it. I was so proud of myself when I finished this custom because going into it, I wasn't even sure if it was going to work. I was really nervous. This was 6 years ago, so they were actually on clearance. So I think I paid like 15 bucks. Ghoulia at the time, a G1 Ghoulia, I got her like naked on eBay for $10. So it really wasn't a big investment in the project. So I figured I could do it, and honestly, it turned out better than I could ever imagine. If you want to try yourself and you have questions, I would love to help you out. Comment any questions, and I can give you answers about how I handled it. It was 6 years ago, so I'm not going to remember everything perfectly. Having them stand up is actually kind of hard because not only are they top heavy, the Ghoulia body legs are just really, really floppy. So even when they're on their stand, I find I have trouble keeping them straight up. They really have to lean against something. But that's okay. I mostly just display them. This is actually my favorite dress on them and typically what I have them displayed in. Here they are in Katrine's dress. I really find anything in like the purple, blue range looks good on these girls, basically because of the blue hair tone. I've got them in Frankie's shoes here. It's really fun to pose them because they can, you know, interact with each other with those arms. You can move their heads around so, you know, they can look at each other or just look straight, that kind of thing. So they're really fun doll to play with. This is Abby's dress on them. As you can see, I have them in kind of a cute pose here with their hands, kind of like they're fighting, that you can see in their cartoon also. I noticed the legs here on the top are kind of yellowing, just the thighs, not the bottom part of the legs. So that's kind of interesting. And then these shoes here, I believe that these are Cleo's. It looks like they've got kind of that Sphinx guy on the heel. Here you can kind of get a good view of that sea monster ear, pretty much the only sea monster thing left about him since I sanded the scales off. I really hope you enjoyed this video and had a nice time watching how I did this custom. If you do attempt it, please let me know, ask me any questions. I would love to see pictures if you make your own. Thanks so much.